Lovely, no?
We're live. Hi everyone, welcome to the second of our Fèis tastings. This morning I think you had Emma and James. No, Emma and James I think this morning actually, yes, doing a live tasting for you. I'm here with Anthony, my dad, for the second tasting here, and it's great. We've got a full crowd out here today, hundreds of people in, and we've just sold out of our Fèis release. So the third whiskey we'll be trying in the lineup for this. We've got the tasting packs. We've actually sold out of those bottles now, which is great to see so many people in and buying that one. But we've got a lineup for you here. Those with the packs, if you open them up, pour the whiskies in, and it should indicate the lineup for you. For those who don't have the packs, just join in, have a dram, pour something. Hans-Peter, I see you've joined in from Berlin. Nice to see you from Kilchoman. Shame you can't join us this year. But I think we're almost ready to go with the drams. And
Okay. Just straight into the drams?
well, if you'd like to sum things up, any explanation.
I'd just like to say that we're very fortunate with the weather we're having today on our Fèis day. Glorious sunshine and a full house, enjoying the music and strolling around the different departments at the distillery. So we've been very fortunate, and the weather during the week has been pretty good, but the weather saved itself for our day, which is great.
Yeah, well done.
So now I get on. Do I get on?
Well, you can go straight away if you want. You can always wait.
So I think
Everyone seems to be from Germany so far. 3 from Berlin.
They're all
from Germany.
Hans-Peter's mates from Kilchoman, probably. But it's great to see you, Hans. Peter, I mean, you've always been a great supporter of ours, and we appreciate what you do for us in terms of spreading the word about Kilchoman. But we've got a great lineup. New releases for this in the last couple of months. Batch Strength, the first one, is a new core expression, and those who managed to attend the European tour would have tasted it and enjoyed it. Hopefully, I think the feedback's been very, very positive. So what we wanted to do is introduce a third core expression and a batch and a strength with a sort of cask strength or nearly cask strength, because I've always been a great fan of cask strength whiskies. So this is very much the core of it is bourbon cask matured.
But a very small comment to make. Although it's loud in here, the microphone will help. I feel carry the voice.
Oh, am I shouting?
You're not shouting to Germany. They should.
Well, it is quite a long way away.
So
I need to shout.
They should hear you.
So they can hear me.
Yeah.
The cask strength has the bourbon and Oloroso sherry that we use for Machia Bay, and then we've added 15% of the red wine shaved, toasted, and recharred casks, which add a different dimension to the expression. And I think it's worked incredibly well. We've reduced it slightly from the full strength down to 57 because we want to keep that consistent going forward as a release at 57% batch strength. And I think you'll find that on the nose it is different.
I'll grab the bottle.
It has a sort of summer fruit character to it that the bourbon and sherry doesn't have. And I think these casks, which from our cooperage that we use in Portugal called Dias, they do a fantastic job. The quality of their casks is unreal, and we use them a lot for our sort of experimental cask types, including the shaved, toasted, and recharred. But these are ex-red wine casks from Portuguese red wine, and I think it's the balance we're getting from the addition of the red wine cask has made a fantastic difference to the character.
Yeah, and this was released in end of March, I think. Yeah. So it's the first core expression for sort of 10 or 11 years. We've had Machia Bay and Saneg as the core range, and those have been always available. And I think we've wanted to add one for a long time, and finally got the stocks after 2019 when we increased production. We now have some of that stock coming through, and we can start to look at experimenting more and bringing more releases over the next sort of 5 years into the core range.
Yeah, and I think what it gives it is a sort of lifts the character, the fruitiness a little bit more than just bourbon and sherry. And I think I'm all about experimentation to showcase Kilchoman in different guises. And I think this has worked exceptionally well. And at 57%, you don't get that alcohol burn or spirit character.
I think it will surprise people when they taste it with 57%, the power they're expecting.
Yeah.
You know, it's sort of that real sort of sweet fruit coming through, and the smoke is there. But I think, you know, like with a lot of Kilchomans, we have the peat, but it's not necessarily that iodine, earthy, typical Islay sort of punchy smoke. It's there, but it's sort of, you know, that sort of maritime lighter smoke typical of Kilchoman, and then that sweet fruit from those ex-red wine casks really comes through. Even though it's about 20% of this whiskey, they really come through on the taste of it.
Yeah. So I think we're delighted with the reaction we've received, and I think coinciding it with the European tour where we visited 22 countries over 10 weeks, I think it was 10 weeks.
10 weeks, yeah.
Has really showed us, you know, the importance of consumer interaction and being able to get in front of consumers and getting their comments on what we're doing, because I think at the end of the day, if you don't keep up with trends, you're going to fall behind. So it's been a hugely successful tour, and it's something that we'll repeat going forward. And we're off to Asia in the autumn to do one there, and then in the USA as well, because we feel they really means we get in front of the end consumer, and it's very important to do that.
Yeah, and let us know your comments if you've got any tasting notes or any comments on the whiskies in the lineup, or any questions in general. You can ask my dad about anything, Fèis, Kilchoman, anything else that springs to mind. I think there's a couple. What's the? Are there only absolute no in a different? I think that's the question potentially on no other different casks. It's only sherry, but it's red wine, sherry, and bourbon cask maturation in the batch strength here. So mostly bourbon barrels, a small amount of Oloroso sherry, and then around about 20% is the red wine cask for the batch strength.
So we did the first batch, and we've just done a second. And as I say, it'll be continually available going forward, which is important, having another core expression readily available on the shelves. So, yeah, we've done that.
You want to move on now, no, so we've got, so this one, the casks used in here, you know, some of those we call STR casks have been used, and some of you might remember the STR release we did, what was it, 3-4 years ago now?
4 years ago.
4 years ago now, and we called them recharred ex-red wine casks here, but essentially the same process as the STR, which we did a full maturation release of a few years ago, and we've got quite a few of those, don't we, in the warehouse?
Yes,
so
we've made a point of buying annually. We buy a lot more of the ex-red wine casks because they work so beautifully well, either as a full maturation or using them like we are now in the batch strength. So it was a decision we took about 6 years ago to fill more, and we're delighted that we did that, because it's now given us this opportunity of doing a batch strength.
Yeah, and so we made the batch strength. We may do another STR cask full maturation, but then a lot of those will go into here because I think with the treatment they've had with recharring, you know, and toasting, you get that sort of variety of flavors. You get oak, smoke, spice, red wine. You get so many flavors. I think they're all coming through here where, as we said, little alcohol burn, but lots of character, lots of flavor, particularly on the finish, where it's a long finish where you get that sweetness, that smoke, the fruit sort of constantly coming back in waves. So, no, I think a lot of you will enjoy this dram. Are you trying to read the questions come through? I've got them here. The questions.
Okay.
The question coming in from Andreas, I believe, is: will there also be some more Mackie Bay cask strength in the future?
Yeah, I think so. It was very, very popular when we released it, and it's something that we will continue to do. We just have to be careful about our overall maturation and making sure that we have the stock available going forward. And that's always difficult to predict. But I've always been a fan of cask strength whiskies, and we know how well they've been received. So it's something we will continue to do, and hence the batch strength that we've done now.
Yeah, and I'm not sure we can tell people now, but we've
can.
done Mackie Bay cask strength for a few years now, whether it's for the tour release or just as a one-off limited release. But a lot have been asking every year we do it for the Sané cask strength, and we have less sherry casks in stock, so it's always been something we're a little reluctant to do. But as I said, since we've increased production, we've got a a bit more flexibility now. So later on this year, we do plan to release a Sane cask strength now. So that'll be released towards the end of the year, but we'll let you know when that's due to be coming up. And obviously we've got the club where we'll send the emails out to you first, so you'll know all about it when it comes out.
Good. Okay, so that's about strength, which we're delighted with the comments we received for it. And the second dram you'll have in front of you is the recently released, I think last week, the Sauternes Cask Matured. This is the third Sauternes Cask Matured release we've done. We've switched it up a little bit because we've got to know what works well for us. And I think fresh first fill Sauternes tend to have too much power, too much sweetness, and they're harder to get right. So this one is more refill casks that we used finishes in the last release we did, and this time we've refilled them. So they've had little use as for some spirit in them, but stripped out some of that heavy sweetness that Sauternes has. So mainly refilled, but we have also used first fill, but a very small percentage. And you know, when you taste this, I don't think it has the really strong sort of heavy sweetness, honey sweetness that you associate with Sauternes, and it allows the characteristics from Kilchoman, the salty, briny character, still to be there in the background, which is hugely important to us to make sure you're not sort of smothering the whiskey in the cask influence. So, you know, yes, the color is sort of rich in color. It's bottled at 50%. We've done a few more in this release. I think it's around 23,000 bottles. We're actually thrilled with it. Well, I am thrilled with how this has turned out. I think it was tasted on the European tour again, and I think the comments are pretty positive. Yes, it has that Sauternes character, but I think I get on the nose. I still get that briny, salty character at the back, which is important to me. And yes, you get all that sweetness, honey sweetness, but there is still that smoky, briny, salty character coming through on the back of the palate.
Yeah, I think that's maybe the difference with Sauternes with some of the other wine casks we use, like port or Madeira, Marsala, even PX sherry. A lot of them are so intense with the character, they dampen down a lot of the smoke, which is no bad thing. You know, some of them are that bold sweetness really, you know, carries through to the finishes and is great. But Sauternes, what the difference is here is it allows that smoke to come through as well as adding the sort of buttery sweetness, the floral character. So it's a really nice combination of those two. And for those who tried, I guess, the previous Sauternes, so this is the third one we've done, one in 2016, 2018, a refill one and a finish. For those, it might be of interest for those who tried the 2018 Sauternes finish, which was a 5-month finish. A lot of those casks have been used in here. So although they're refill casks for the Sauternes, a lot of them have only had 5 months that they've been used for finishing the previous release and then filled them as full maturation. So it's kind of taken a bit of the intensity out, but you still have lots of that Sauternes character coming in here. So we sort of reuse those for what now, you know, a combination of what 5- and 6-year-old casks have gone into this vatting.
I think we, you know, we've learned a lot over the last 15 or 20 years that we've been using experimental casks, and overall, I would say that fortified wine casks are easy to work with because of the additional alcohol strength binds it together and gives us the balance we're looking for. And then we have to look after the wine casks a bit more carefully and watch them because you're not sure how it's all going to come together. And I think, you know, they get a bit bland and a bit wishy-washy, and you want that structure still to be there. So wine casks, we've learned that refill wine casks are slightly better and work a bit more balance attached to them, whereas fortified wines, we find it a bit easier to go full maturation for 6-7 years without worrying about it. And now we've used all these different casks. We're running out of cask types to get hold of, but we haven't had an issue with them. But fortified wine is working better.
One of the questions actually that came in was, you know, have we, you know, are there any bourbon or sherry casks that you've tried that you've been disappointed in by the end product?
Well, the bourbon and sherry.
Yeah.
No, because I think with the bourbon, certainly the releases we put out, they're all ex-Buffalo Trace, and they have that wonderful consistency about them. Sherry, we've got a wonderful supplier of sherry casks down in Jerez, and they're more challenging to work with the Islay characteristics, that peat smoke and saltiness, and trying to get those to work together is challenging, and more challenging than working with bourbon. But I think overall, we know how it works. We know that the hogsheads give us all the power and colour that we're looking for the Saneg release. And then we know that the balance and richness for longer maturation works well for the butts. And I think, although they're all different, you can fill 25 casks in a day and go back to them in 6-7 years, and they'll all be slightly different. But we know how well it. This morning I did a tasting, and we had a 17-year-old Oloroso sherry butt, which was fantastic. So,
did you do a 17-year-old?
Yeah, 17-year-old.
I'll have to try it.
And so, it's all about getting to know how well your spirit works with different cask types.
And obviously, such an expert master blender, it's so easy.
An overused term. I think you get anybody, and lots of our customers and who are as good as I would be, but I've got the benefit of having a distillery that I can go and play in the warehouses. So you do get to know how your spirit works with different cask types, and the challenge is always to try and just push the barriers a bit further each time.
Why are you being modest in front of the camera? We're behind you, it tells us how me and my brothers are part of the sales and marketing team, and he tells us we've just got an easy job because he makes good whiskey. Yep. It's so easy for us to sell it.
Well, it's true.
Is that right? Yeah,
it's true. Well, look, I think it all comes down to the guys who make the spirit, because the consistency of the spirit that we produce is the key. And then I have the easier task of sourcing the best quality wood. And joking apart, Jim Swan, who advised me about cask maturation, got it absolutely spot on. Don't cut corners in maturation. Buy the best quality wood, the most expensive if it has to be, because that will stand you in good stead going forward. And that was the best advice he gave me, because he set up the production criteria and he got that right. And then the easy task is finding the best quality wood, which he gave me all the contacts. And so I'm very grateful to what he did for Kilchoman, because without his input, we wouldn't be where we are.
I think interestingly.
So yes, I am still very good at it.
Yeah, still very good, but with some small amount of help, obviously, along the way. So with the Sauternes, I think interestingly, the cask strength one we tasted on the tour. I don't know if anyone here was on the tour with us, but we tasted it at cask strength as a pre-release sample. I think interestingly, that one probably had less of the smoke coming through at cask strength, a little bit sweeter maybe. It's interesting here to see that sort of slightly sort of dry or ashier sort of smoke coming through here. Yeah. One of the questions is how many Sauternes casks were in the batting? Now you have to try and remember this. I think I
63.
Remember. Yeah, it was. Yeah. Well, 61 or 63. I can't remember.
63.
Somewhere around there.
Rachel, how many? No idea. No idea.
Around 60, we'll call it that.
No, 63.
63.
Hogsheads.
Confident in
that.
I
think it was 17 first fill, and however many 40. And
then another question on the Sauternes. You have done Sauternes, a nice sweetness. Is that the sweetest you can go? We have a Tokaji, for instance, too sweet. So,
well, we filled Maori casks, Masala casks, Pinot de Charente casks, which are all sort of dessert wine.
Oh god! Oh god!
Things are going awry here.
Yeah, using your hands too much.
Rachel. No, we're back on track. Yeah. So Marsala from Sicily, Pinot de Charente from France. We are getting some Muscat, the Reef Salt cask. So all these are dessert wine casks. So I wouldn't say there are any sweet wines that we can't work with. The challenge is to make sure that they don't overpower the spirit. Yeah. And that is obviously a very skilled job.
Obviously. What a talented job, yeah. What about our jobs? They're very talented.
No, yours is easy. I make your jobs very easy.
I'm sure you do. And a few comments here about, Fino and Cognac as well. But they're thinking the Sauternes is even better than those. And you quite enjoy, I think, all the different cask types and doing the full maturations where it's so easily traceable where the flavors come from. You know, a lot of distilleries will do maybe 3 casks, 4 casks battered together, or finishes, or different versions of that. Whereas something we like to do, you like to do, is do the full maturation. So it's Sauternes cask from start to finish. It's very much Kilchoman spirit, and here's how that cask is affected.
Yeah,
so it's kind of traceable in that sense.
I always wanted to set out to do full maturation because people have done finishes, distilleries have done finishes and done a fantastic job doing them. But obviously, on occasions, some of the casks don't offer that, so we need to do them as finishes. So we've done a bit of both, but on the whole, full maturation is where the direction I like to go, because that's more of a challenge. And not many distilleries do that with a lot of different casks. I think I'll be corrected if I'm wrong, but I think we're one of the few distilleries that have used so many different cask types and release different releases, because that's about innovation, that's about challenging ourselves to see how far we can go in getting different characteristics. And I think, you know, I always talk about casks being the most important part of what we end up releasing, because 60 to 70%, there's absolutely no doubt, nobody can argue with me on that, comes from the cask type it's matured in. And I think it's about trying to really push the boundaries in terms of what we release. So we will continue to try and source different cask types and all the time. But we know what works, so we will repeat those. But I think everybody needs to realize that a batch of Madeira casks 1 year, and then we get a batch the following year, will not be the same.
Yeah.
And that is why you can't rely on that being the same. Rather like bourbon or sherry, we know how well that works. So it'll continue to be a challenge, but we won't switch from bourbon to STR because we think it works better.
Yeah, and this kind of fits in with I guess the ethos is kind of like, you know, young, fresh, full of character whiskey, and you know, these Sauternes casks are never going to be 20-year-old releases because they work well, full maturation, fresh cask. You know, the same with the port cask. We've got a distillery exclusive at the moment, which is, you know, a port finish, and the freshness of those casks means that after I think 8 years and 9 months, finish is so full with the port cask, that sweetness. Another question coming in here is, which comes first, acquiring casks and making a whiskey from them, or deciding what you want to make and seeking out the cask to do that?
No, it's definitely, we make a consistent character spirit on the whole. Look, that's what the skill of the job is in the still house. You follow production parameters, and on the whole, we stick to that because it's about producing consistent character of spirit. And then we find the cask to fill into it. We do the odd experiment with different cut points, different yeast varieties, and different draining times from our mash tun. But, you know, that's about innovating a bit differently and showcasing what different yeast varieties and the impact they have on the spirit. And it's the same in the field, you know, growing different barley varieties in the same field, which we can do, and then putting it through the stills and having 2 different spirits, same yeast varieties, same cut points, and they taste slightly differently. I think what we have to realize is that's all very fine, and that's about education. When you put it into cask, the characteristics are going to narrow right down, 5 years, 10 years, even more so. So we don't hang a great deal on that in terms of doing releases in that respect, but Unpeated is something that we do on a regular basis now from our own barley. And now you're going to get a chance, unless we got more questions.
No, I was going to say, you're probably, you know, people have jobs to get back to on a Thursday, so you know, you probably move on to number 3.
All right,
now.
number 3 is our release of today, this is quite different, and we do it differently here in terms of the release. And I know that means that people joining us today aren't in the position to buy a bottle of the Fèis release, but we like to stick to how the Fèis works, and we feel it's important that those who make the effort to get here on the day of our open day get the chance to buy a bottle. And as Peter alluded to earlier, we've already sold out of the bottles that we released, 482. And that actually is what we're looking to do, in fact. So I'm sorry you're not able to buy a bottle, but you've got a dram in front of you. And this year...
Some of you, anyway.
Or some of you.
Yeah. I'll show you a bottle, but I think we've sold out, so we
haven't got any bottles. Anyways, this is an Unpeated. And, you know, funnily enough, my sales and marketing team questioned whether it was Unpeated. Yeah. And in fact, they questioned it so much. They questioned it so much, they didn't believe me until they tasted it themselves.
Yeah.
And even today, James says, will I get a little whiff of peaty, smoky character. But it is unpeated, I can assure you of that. And yes, there might be, but it's very little. And this is 100% Islay. So it's much lighter and more floral character anyway. And you don't get as much peat and smoke as you do from the commercial malt. So we understand that, but it is unpeated. And the thing about 100% Islay from our own barley grown around the fields surrounding the distillery is it has this wonderfully light, floral, clean character. Fresh and fruity. It's not a sort of last thing of the night dram. It's a dram for the middle of the day or early evening. Nice summer's day like this, Thursday afternoon with the sun shining. You couldn't get a better day than we're getting now. And I think, on the nose, you get this lovely floral sort of light character. I love it.
I think it's one of the few Kilchomans where you get a lot of citrus and fresh fruits and things from, a variety of the Kilchomans. But for this one, when it's unpeated, I think you get more of the apple and that sort of tropical fruit coming
citrus
through more so than on some of the other releases. So it's the first time I've tasted that on a Kilchoman, I think.
And it's 12 years of age, nearly 13, but 12 years of age. And it's beautiful. And it's rounded, it's mature. You have a little bit more of the character from the cask, a little bit of butterscotch and maybe a bit of a vanilla, but this sort of lemon and citrus note's still there. And it has this sort of crispness about it. And we're delighted. It was only 482 bottles. It was bottled at, I'm trying to see here, 53%. And
I think similar to the batch strength, you don't get the sort of alcohol, that burn. It's not sort of fighting against the alcohol to find the character. It's powerful, yes, but it's all those flavors come through. And as I said, that lightness and loads of fruit here coming through.
So I think everyone said, oh, well, an unpeated Kilchoman, why do you do it? Well, we can. And I think it's important that you do.
We probably did it because things broke down and went wrong.
No, it didn't.
You did this on purpose in 2011.
I did this. Of course I did. I'm ahead of the game.
I don't believe that.
Yeah, I did.
Is there a reason also why you bottled it 1 week short of being 13 years of age?
Because it's a Fèis. We were going to do this for the Fèis, and we couldn't bottle it later. So, and I think actually, the Fèis is all about a festival release that is available on the day. And sadly, and this will be controversial, but sadly, a few of the distilleries now make it available worldwide. And I think that takes away from the festival itself. It used to be about lining up to get your bottle and at each distillery. And I think that's the way it should be. So we will stick with that, sadly, for those who can't make it, because I think it's all part of the festival day. But it's different. And we do unpeated fairly regularly now. Every year we do a small batch of unpeated. We'll continue to do that.
One of the questions is, why did you choose an unpeated? I don't know whether that's for this one or in general to do unpeated casks.
Well, we won't do it generally, and it won't be something that we do a lot of, but it's something we can do because we control every aspect, and it means that we're able to do it on a regular basis if we so wish. Okay.
Very good.
Any questions?
Yes, that was the unpeated one. I think there's one coming in from Stefan. I can't quite read it, but Rachel is busy typing, so I think it's coming. It's coming through.
Kept separate. Is that right? Yes. Yeah. So we keep the low wines and fates separate. There might be a little bit of escape, but it tends to be that way. So we can keep it completely separate, and I think that's key to saying it's unpeated. Otherwise, you struggle to be able to say, well, I can look someone straight in the eye and say that and get away with it, but I can. So low wines and fates are kept separate.
And that was from all the way out in Tokyo, that question. So
yeah.
I think we saw some people in from Thailand as well. So hello to everyone all around the world. And we'll be hopefully making our way out to Asia later this year for the batch strength tour. So we won't be bringing our pickup truck with a cask in the back all the way out to Thailand, but we'll be coming via plane and doing a tour out there later in the year.
And unpeated Islas, they're not that many. There's some very lightly peated, obviously Brugladdy or the standard bottlings and Bunnahabhain. So unpeated is rare, but it's nice to be able to put one out there.
Yeah. Very good. So the Fèis, so that's once a year, and you like to choose something a bit different for those. Hopefully you can all make it next year, where it's our 20th anniversary next year. So presumably we've got something special planned. And as an expert, you probably planned ahead and you got this all sorted.
You will have a party.
We'll have a party. Everyone's invited.
Everybody's invited.
No, very good. So those are the first 3 drams, and dram number 4 is something that people may know a bit.
Yes.
Be a bit more
we got a
familiar.
bottle of that. Yeah.
Yes.
Here's our able assistant.
Yep. Just still the forearm.
Come around here, Rachel. Come around here. No. So Rachel in the background is helping out, which is always very useful, keeping us right about things. So look, Loch Gorm, I think everyone will be familiar with Loch Gorm. It's our annual limited release of 100% matured in Oloroso sherry butts. And to my mind, it really epitomizes Islay whiskey matured in sherry cask. Quite tricky. Doesn't always work because the sherry influence can be too dominating. But sherry butts lend themselves very well because they long maturation and more balanced than the smaller hogsheads that we use for Saneg. But then we're looking for something different with Saneg, which is a hard sort of full-on sherry influence at a young age, and hogsheads give us that in abundance. The Saneg expression is more full-on sherry. It's not overbearingly sherry, but it's more full-on, and you get more balance and longer maturation using butts. And I explained it's a bit more tricky to work with butts, and they all are slightly different. But on the nose, you immediately you get that smoky. I get smoky bacon, barbecue on a beach. You get that salty, briny, but sort of barbecue character shining through. And that's all about the peat and smoke. And you get more of that with sherry cask maturation than you do with bourbon. You get more influence from the cask. The peat and smoke coming from the back of the palate with bourbon cask. But I get it on the front, on the nose, quite dramatically. And it's that sort of spicy, sweet barbecue character that shines through. Being on the beach and the wind in your face and all that, sort of lots of salt in the air. And the sherry influence is all there. These are over 9 years of age. This is 9 years of age and over. We've used 12-year-old cask, 11-year-old cask, 10-year-old.
9 years and 11 months is the youngest. So,
9
again,
years.
you're just like doing just short of those the next age statement on purpose, obviously.
I think, and it's about, we are filling more sherry casks because not only with the Loch Gorm, but also they're very useful in battings with bourbon and sherry because that gives it extra weight and character and colour and backbone. So, sherry plays a big part in our maturation program.
Was it the first 2 or was it 3 that were hogsheads for Loch Gorm? Or was this the very first one?
No, I think the first one, it was all butts. We've never varied. You should pay attention.
Well, actually, I think if we look back in history, I believe the first sherry cask matured was hogsheads.
You look back, Hans Peter will know.
I honestly should never question you.
You should never question.
But I reckon
I assure you, Loch Gorm has always been in butts because, and we've done more powerful Oloroso sherry influence. I get that. And I think 1 or 2 have been really sort of hard hitting. And then a lot of people have enjoyed that. But from my own point of view, I want to get the balance between the Kilchoman characteristics and the influence from the cask. So it's about getting that balance.
I think they've always been different. So Loch Gorm, for those who know Loch Gorm well, I'm sure you've traced it over the years a few times with the different releases we've done. But for those who don't know the previous editions, each time the age has changed slightly, or sometimes more fresh cask, more refill cask, but always the same character. So always Oloroso sherry matured, always Oloroso butts, those bigger 500-litre casks. And just the subtle changes over time, I think they really do change. This one now being pretty much 10 years of age. Last year's, I think, was 8 years of age. So, and more fresh cask now used than last year. So you'll get much more of that richness coming through. Last year, I found it a little bit more of the sort of ashy smoke coming through. This year, more of that richness, a bit more of the caramel coming through on the palate. On the nose, still dry, still that sort of ashy smoke. On the palate, I think.
Much smoother.
Yeah, much smoother, much more that sweetness coming in. But I think compared to most of the Kilchoman range, the weight and how viscous and sort of heavy the Loch Gorm is telling, probably in this lineup as well, where this one really comes through with that much more weight to it.
So I think it's worked very well, and I'm trying to switch it up a bit in terms of I don't want them to be the same each time we do a Loch Gorm release. I want them to be slightly different, and I'm sure some people have done it with the different releases we've done a Loch Gorm, line them up and taste them, and then there is a subtle difference, I think, with all of them. We hope that in the future we'll be able to, as I said earlier, we tasted a 2007 Oloroso sherry butt in my tasting this morning, and I was blown away with how fresh and fruity it was, and I was expecting maybe a bit more cask influence, and it wasn't there. There was more, and I preferred the 2014 distillation to the 2017. We were spoiled in the tasting this morning. No, I meant the 2010. So 2010 and 2007.
Yeah. Getting forgetful in your old age.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Can't blame him.
Can't blame me.
And the Loch Gorm. So this is the 2024 edition. So released about a month ago, I think. And obviously, some people further away in Asia or down in Australia, New Zealand, it may take a little longer to reach you out there. But we do this every year in limited amounts, around 18,000 bottles every year we release of this. So once it's gone, and then we wait till next year to then release the new batch. And I think I'm saying, we did fill a lot more, probably around sort of 6-7 years ago. We filled a lot more sherry butts,
yeah.
And so we hope anyway, sometime over the next few years, we may have a sort of a bigger release of the sort of sherry, Oloroso sherry, the Loch Gorm style. Whether it becomes permanently available or just slightly bigger releases is probably yet to be decided.
It all depends really on the direction we go and how much production we do. Of course, we produced 640,000 litres last year, so. And previous year it was over 500. So we've got lots of stock now. I think we've got 18,500 casks in the warehouses now, which is fantastic. And the great thing is now we have that flexibility to release some older expressions, which is giving us a huge amount of pleasure because it's something we weren't able to do a few years ago.
Problem is most of those are under 3 years old now.
No.
But we do have a question. Actually, Hans Peter has said the Loch Gorm 2015 had a small portion of Holsteads, apparently. So there you go.
How do you know that?
So we should question him, really, because sometimes he may not always be right. But a few more questions come in, so we'll answer these. So would you ever consider using another cask type other than red wine for the STR sort of process?
We might, I think. But I think what I would say is that it's worked so well, I think we might get a bit of backlash if we switched it up. And I think it's about having consistency with your core expressions and people understanding if they buy batch strength, maybe that it's pretty similar. It's like Saneg and Maccabee. People know that they're going to be very much the same each time. And we've tried, they are done in batches, but they are quite similar. They might change slightly. And I think the batch strength is all about keeping that consistency. So, as I was saying earlier, we're filling these ex-red wine casks more and more. And I think at the moment, that's what the vatting will be for batch strength.
Yeah, and outside of that, in terms of just general filling, we're sticking probably with STR with red wine, or
yes.
Open to doing it with others?
No, we're open to do it with others, but I think that will be determined only if we've got the cask availability.
Yeah. And another question here on obviously someone experiencing the sweetness from the sherry cask and not from the bourbon barrels, and why would that be?
Well, sherry, Oloroso sherry, those who've drunk Oloroso sherry, it has this sort of quite sweet character. And Oloroso sherry has always been used in the whiskey industry as a vessel for maturing single malt from Scotland, and I think that will continue. We fill Fino casks, that drier. We're getting some Manzanilla casks over fairly soon, that even drier than Fino, and we filled Pedro Jimenez, which is sweeter than Oloroso, and Palacatado. We're going to fill some of those. So, Oloroso, don't ask me why, but that's been the go-to sherry cask type that the industry has used, and we followed that because Jim Swan told me to.
Yeah, I think it's with the bourbon cask, you get a bit of sweetness, but it's more that vanilla sort of sweetness, and you get the bourbon cask kind of allow our citrus, fresh fruit through, allow more of that peat through as well. So perhaps that's why you're getting some more of the sweetness from the sherry, where it's a bit more powerful. It dominates a little bit more of the spirit. And do we use Manzanilla casks is one of the other questions.
We haven't used Manzanilla yet, but as I said, we're getting some over in the next batch to see how they work. But look, the Fino has worked really well. We've done a Fino cask. We've done 2 Fino Cask Matured releases. So it'd be interesting to see how, if it differs much. And I think I would suggest that it won't differ a lot from the Fino, but let's wait and see.
And what in terms of coming up releases, so later this year, we've got obviously the 100% Islay, the next release. So that's all produced on the farm here where we grow the barley, take it through every stage of production up to bottle. So we've got that, the 14th edition of that coming out. And we're right in saying that is bourbon and sherry influence, or is that all bourbon cast again like last year?
I think it's all bourbon.
Can't remember.
No, I think it's all bourbon. Rachel, is it all bourbon?
And then we're on top of that, we've got a port cask matured coming up, which is quite interesting because the previous port we've done has usually been one type of port, where it's ruby port or tawny port, and it's been one specific cask type that we release. Always very popular actually, port, but this time we've gone with white port and ruby port.
Yes.
As the combination of casks that we're releasing as full maturation. So that's later this year, along with the Sauternes Cask Strength. I guess outside of that, are there other cask types that we haven't released yet that are coming up?
Yeah, no, a fair few. I went, Robin will tell you how it went a bit mad in 2019 and 20 with these experimental casks, and we filmed all sorts of different things. So we're still going to have to wait for those to be ready to go. But yeah, there's lots of interesting stuff that we've got in the warehouse that keeps us busy checking on making sure they're doing okay. It's a hard job.
Very hard job, obviously.
Hard job.
Yeah, lucky you're so talented.
Yeah, well,
very
I say it myself.
And you're going on tour this year as well, aren't you? So people may get to see you around the world. So you've been keeping yourself on Islay and sending your three sons around the world.
I'm not. I've been sacked from sales marketing.
Yeah.
And occasionally I'm allowed out.
Yeah.
And I'm going to Asia.
Yeah. So this year we're allowing you out of Islay. So later this year, if you're in Taiwan for the Asian tour, you'll be able to see him out there. If you're in China as well, he'll be visiting there, and as well as Germany, there's a few tastings planned out there as well. So going on the road.
But what do you have to remember? I used to do all the traveling on my own. I was hardly at the distillery. So I'm actually quite pleased that now I can relax and spend a bit more time at the distillery with Robin, looking after car. And Robin is extraordinary in his knowledge of encyclopedic knowledge of where every cask in the warehouse is. And I don't even have to look on the list. He tells me where it is. So he's and Robin's been with us since he keeps reminding me he's been here since 2010. I have to remind him he was a part-time stillman though. And he became the distillery manager in 2015, I believe.
Very good. I think there's a question coming in, but I can't read it. Rachel's going to help me out with my eyesight.
Are you coming to the US?
Are you coming to the US? Are you coming to the US?
Me in particular, yes. Well, I haven't been told I am yet, but we'll see. I know there's a tour on the East Coast, but maybe they don't want me there.
It's in the middle of America, isn't it?
Oh, it's in the middle of America. Is it? Rachel, where is it? Oh, right, middle of
America, yeah.
Downtown.
See, this is why we don't let them out so much. But no, we're coming to the US, and Emma and James will be doing the main part of that tour, but I presume you may make an appearance.
Yeah, make an appearance.
So if you commented a question on YouTube, oh no, is that just for me, Rachel? That might just for my knowledge, not for everyone's. Sorry. So you don't need to know that. But thank you for joining, everyone. I think we've gone through the 4 whiskies there. If you've got any extra questions, we'll follow up later if we can on social media. But thanks for joining. It's very busy here at Fèis, so we're going to go back, and you're probably going to have a few more drams and a few more whiskey cocktails.
I noticed you've drunk most of the.
Well, that's what it's here to be drunk, isn't it? So, but cheers, to everyone, and hopefully you've enjoyed the Fèis release, particularly in the lineup.
Thanks for joining us, and have a great day. We look forward to seeing you on your next episode.